Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Legendarium podcast. This is episode... Oh, crap. I have no idea. 300 and something. Today we're talking about video game movies. Again, this is a video game movie redux. I am Craig Hanks, your host, and joining me is Ryan Bruckman over there. No insult today, Ryan. You're worse than the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. And, of course, we also have our video game movie crew, who was here last time, Kyle and Adam Sherlock. So for those who don't know, Adam, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
There's that sultry voice I was looking for. For those who don't know, Adam Sherlock, we're just going to call you Sherlock.
I think that's totally fine.
Is from the Deep Dive Film School, which you can find on YouTube. You can find the podcasts, wherever fine podcasts are listened to. And it is fantastic. So if you like movies, if you like really getting into, the theory and the minutia and the fun of film, then go check them out. So Sherlock, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we had no choice, really.
That is true.
Because we just had a new Mortal Kombat movie come out. And we actually have a recap of the Mortal Kombat movie written by Ryan Bruckman. So, Ryan, are you ready to give your recap?
Yep.
Because I've got it right here.
Okay.
So, Ryan texted us, the Legendarium crew. Here is the recap. Allow me to save time for any of you who might have considered watching Mortal Kombat on HBO Max. It is one of the worst things I have ever watched, and not in that campy, so bad it's good way. End tweet.
I stand by it.
Do you?
I stand by it.
Like one of the worst movies you've ever watched or things you've ever watched? Like you could put this up next to like the Challenger explosion?
Wow. You know what? It was really creeping up in that range.
Okay.
But no, I'm going to go with
good.
just
No,
films.
yes.
Films, especially of the last decade for sure. But yeah, it was so painful to watch this movie. And I did finish it, and I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah,
Isn't that because that's what they tell you to do? Finish it. Finish it.
Finish him. He was saying, though, finish me. Just finished it, the whole thing.
Wow, okay. So we're going to get back to the movie in just a moment, but I do want to remind everybody to go to thelegendarium.com, where you can find links to Patreon, where you can support the show. You can find a link to Discord, where you can join the conversation, and all sorts of other fun stuff. If you want to search on the website, you can search by author, I think is the best way. So, all of our podcasts are sorted by author, so you can go search through that if you have somebody that you're interested in. Anyway, I think that's as much housekeeping as I need to do. Ryan, am I forgetting anything?
No, I don't think so. You've already put me under the bus, so I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
Perfect. All right. So, I do want to talk about Mortal Kombat specifically, but let's just call this a free-range discussion about video game movies. Again, hopefully we don't retread too much of what we said last time, but, it is fun to bash on video game movies.
Oh,
so,
if we get Kyle going on Warcraft, I mean... this could be an entirely different episode.
We could do the director's cut extended edition if we get on Warcraft.
Oh boy.
My God.
Hard pass.
Oh, come on.
Anyway, so in prep for this episode, I was telling these guys earlier, I've watched the new Mortal Kombat twice because I was getting a little confused about what had happened in the end of the movie, and so I felt like I needed to go back to make sure I knew what I was talking about for this episode. Very important episode, everybody, okay?
Yes.
So I watched that one twice. I watched the original Mortal Kombat, 1995. Also, the 1995 hit Jean-Claude Van Damme action feature, Street Fighter. Mm-hmm. And then also the sequel to Mortal Kombat, so Annihilation. I've watched all of them in the last 48 hours. I'm doing very well, by the way.
It's like, that's about 10 hours of prep for this episode, I think.
Which is, about as much as I put in for, any given book, right?
So that's probably as much as you put in for the Wheel of Time. The whole series.
That's right.
I like to call those deathbed regrets. You're not getting those ones back, right? You're going to be on your deathbed going, I could have looked at a sunset. So many sunsets, and instead I watched 10 hours of these movies.
Well, I don't regret it because, so the entertainment value is there. Let's get to the new one in just a moment, but let me just go back in time to 1995. This was, people forget about Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter in their discussions of like when similar movies came out the same year, like Dante's Peak and Volcano, or Deep Impact and Armageddon. And it was the same year that we got Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. For some reason, that name is escaping me. But anyway, it was fascinating to watch both of those kind of side by side, because the first Mortal Kombat movie, it's not a good movie, but it's earnest. Like they wanted to make an entertaining movie. They wanted to get into this Mortal Kombat franchise and really sink their teeth into it. Then you watch Street Fighter, also not a good movie. However, it seems to have about the same mentality as like Austin Powers.
Right.
It's the Austin Powers for action movies. Every single possible cliche, whether it's in terms of dialogue or choreography or whatever, it's all in that one. And so while it wasn't quite as bad as Annihilation, that's Mortal Kombat Annihilation is one of the worst movies ever made. Sorry, Ryan.
No,
it beats the new one.
That's fine.
But anyway, no, but I'm not saying that Street Fighter is a good movie, but it is wildly enjoyable if you have the right mindset.
Going back and rewatching again, and I didn't rewatch all of the 95 Mortal Kombat, but I took a cursory glance across all of it. And I think that the two things I was most surprised by, well, the first one is the totally unintentional Werner Herzog impression that Raiden is doing. Like he does not, Christopher Lambert doesn't mean to do a Werner Herzog impression, but because he's trying to be gruff with his voice, he just sounds like him. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, what a fantastic thing. And it kept cracking me up every time. But the other thing that I actually do really like about the 95 Mortal Kombat is how colorful it is.
Yeah.
And that's my number one critique with the new movie is that, like, since when does ugly equal serious? Like, since when does make it look ugly and make the colors all look really sour, and then we know this is an adult's movie, damn it. Right? Because, like, it's the Zack Snyder, like, filmmaking playbook where it's like, the grosser that it all looks, the more that we realize this is supposed to take place in the real world.
I agree with you. This new movie, the new Mortal Kombat movie, and yeah, okay, fine, spoilers abound, whatever. It's freaking Mortal Kombat, so get over it.
It's fine.
But with this one, it couldn't decide what it wanted to be, whether it wanted to be the 95 one or Zack Snyder does Mortal Kombat, because I think instantly, and I mean instantly, this movie would jump 60% in quality if they didn't do the catchphrases.
Yes.
No fatality, no flawless victory,
here.
no get over here. That was, the guy speaks Japanese the entire movie except for one line when somebody else dubs in, get over here. Yeah. Like, just stop. The 95 movie it's colorful. It's got the costumes ripped straight from the video game.
Yeah.
It's got these crazy sets. The set design is fun in the 95 movie. It is fun set design, fun costume work, and a fun movie. This one was like, they wanted to have fun homages in the middle of this like crazy violent, insanely serious movie.
A child dies in the first 5 minutes of this movie, and I'm like, that's, I mean, I know that it's a gory film, but that just feels a little serious, like for everything else. There's like, and now there's a guy with 4 arms, but this is the same movie where the child dies.
Well, it was pretty interesting too, because before the movie came out, there was a bunch of press that was like, they're purposely pushing the limits for the NC-17 rating, right? But right before that, line or whatever. But then they throw in the campy, cheesy, like, to your point, the dialogue, and like, so there's a huge tonal disconnect.
Yeah, big time. So Ryan, when you saw the movie and you sent that, how much of your initial reaction was from the first 10 minutes, that kind of prologue scene where, and it set the scene for us, tell us what happens and tell us how much that affected your view of the movie.
So the opening sequence scene, you want me to tell you about that?
Yeah.
Because that does have a huge factor on the enjoyment of this film, in my opinion.
I suspected as much.
because the first 10, 12 minutes or so, they actually tell the story of how of this ninja, these two competing ninja factions, and specifically the man who will become Scorpion. You get to know his story and why he hates Sub-Zero as much as he does. They have a history. They do three things really well in this movie that I appreciate, and one of them is actually lore. If you've ever taken any time to sit on the Wikipedia page of Mortal Kombat, which this forced me to do, you realize that there's some lore in there. Like, oh, hey, you're actually telling the story more than just tossing a costume on there. Congratulations. I applaud you for doing that. But
that's also like reverse engineering, though, because you went back to check to be like, how bad did they F this up?
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's what got you to the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, that was pretty much the drive there. But
so in the scene, Scorpion is, or future Scorpion is ninja in feudal Japan.
Yes.
And Sub-Zero is from some faction. I want to say he was Chinese, but he comes over and annihilates this guy's whole village. Yeah, because
he's speaking Japanese and Chinese.
Right, right. So he annihilates the whole village, and Sub-Zero kills his wife and son, and then they duel.
They're there to kill him.
And he kills Scorpion.
Yes. So. Yes. And has this great moment, this fantastic moment. He kills Scorpion. They've had this great battle sequence, and he kind of looks at him and he says, remember this face, and you realize that the two of them can't understand each other at all other than just their hatred of one another. But he says, remember this face, it's going to be the face that kills you, or he says something along those lines. And then we all of a sudden go, boop, let's go to the next part of the story. We're going to jump to the next portion here. And then from there, you have this great, like, oh, that was a really good setup. And then from there, it was like, all right, everyone, ignore everything that we just did to establish a good story. And we're just going to go back to camp. And that's... if you only want to watch the first 10, 12 minutes, it's dark. It's got the gore. It has a bit of lore pieces in there, and it's kind of cool to watch, a Scorpion, instead of having something come out of his hand, he's using the ancient Japanese weaponry where, throwing the knife attached to a rope.
And it's the tool that his wife was using to garden with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a spade.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Like the first 10 minutes, like, is pretty rad, actually. I was like, okay, like, I don't really care about this at all. Like, I saw online people that were like, like the folklore has been ruined, as if it was this like ancient tome. And I'm like, dude, that's called like backfilling. Like they backfilled the hell out of the entire storyline for Mortal Kombat, because to begin with, it was just like, I don't know, do you want to be the yellow guy or the blue guy? Blue guy has a cool trick he can do. And then they hung all of this folklore onto it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but when I saw that first scene, I was like, okay, this could actually be cool. But you want to know how you lose tension in a movie? When you go 200 years later. That's how you always lose any tension that you may have built up, is that you're just like, oh, so that...
There's been time to cool off.
That hasn't mattered for 200 years. What you just saw does not matter.
It was cool, though,
over
right?
the next few centuries.
Yeah.
It was... so I agree with all that. It's like two different movies. Mm-hmm. Happened, and either one would be just fine, but put together, not so great. So putting my cards on the table, Ryan, I kind of liked it.
That's okay.
I'm not.
We
saying,
are known to have different opinions on things.
Yeah, rarely. Ryan and I rarely disagree. Again, it's like those '90s movies. This is not a good movie. There is so much that I can and I'm sure will complain about for the next half hour or so. But I came away from it going like, wow, that was pretty dope. That was fun. So,
I think I would have enjoyed it more. This is reiterating the similar point from before, though. I think if I didn't watch the first 12 minutes and just picked up, I could have been like, oh, this movie is all inside of this box of camp. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I would have enjoyed it more.
It's funny because I watched this movie the night after I watched Kong versus Godzilla.
Oh, nice.
And I came away with pretty much the same feeling about both movies, where it was like kind of just the Ken take. I'm here for the punching, and like I got that. You turn your brain all the way off and reboot it, and then turn it off again, and then you can enjoy this movie. You just watch them fight. It's great.
Don't you feel like if they would have had a director, like I know that I don't know who the director was for this, but I know the main producer was James Wan. who did all the Insidious films and the Conjuring films, and he did Aquaman.
Right.
He's produced, I think, the last 2 Fast and the Furious films. And like, he's also very much known for having like a really dark stylization to the stuff that he produces as well as directs. But for my money, like, I would have loved to have seen, and I know that he doesn't really do this anymore, but even if it had the same tone as what somebody like Paul Verhoeven has, you know, and you came on our show, Craig, and we reviewed Starship Troopers, and you think about the tone that Starship Troopers has, where it's like insanely violent, does have a theme that runs throughout it that's actually very, very clever, and all of the set pieces and jokes fit into that cleverness, but the tone of it at the same time is never so serious that a character that you like can't get killed a couple seconds later and you're like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? And then it moves on to the next action piece. And I think something like that, for if you were going to try and take a fresh tone, still have it be like hard R, almost NC-17 levels of violence, but then still have it be like, hey man, this is based on a video game. I don't know what you thought we were going to do. Right? Because like, that could be rad to have something like that. And it would probably actually hit cult status because it didn't take itself so seriously.
Right. Yeah, I just want, with the video game movie thing, you know, they make the movie and they've got the source material, and I watched the little featurettes on HBO Max. They've got like 3 or 4 little featurettes, and they keep hammering home like, this is for the fans. We're doing this for the fans, and that's why we have all these homages. That's why we had to put this line in. That's why they like, everybody's choreographing their moves based on the moves from the video game.
Right.
And I'm just, in my mind, I'm like, you will never make a good movie this way. I think a good video game movie is possible, perfectly possible. But they would have to, if you want it to actually be a good film, you have to stop doing the fan service and just use the backstory, the lore or whatever, you know? So that's what I'm saying, like, instant jump in quality if they just get rid of the stupid lines and that sort of thing.
I think that one of the problems is that they decided to go, okay, we're going to include those elements, but we're going to cut out one of the key elements of the tournament.
Okay,
The actual
now we're
tournament.
there. Yeah, now we're there.
Because if you have to cut something, don't cut the engine for the whole battle sequences. Like,
So apparently, and now I have not kept up. I don't know about you guys. I have not kept up with the video game franchise. But apparently the tournament has kind of taken a bit of a back seat to, you know, they're actually following some story beats from the newer games. I have no idea what those are. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of, by the time I got to the end, I'm like, oh, so they're never going to, you know, there's no judge, there's no.
Well, isn't that weird? Because in the first one, there is actually a line where Raiden says to, I can't remember what the bad guy's name is.
Shang Tsung?
Yeah. He says to him, oh, you're trying to ambush us. You know that's against the rules to ambush any of the opponents before the actual tournament. And in this movie, that's all the movie is them trying to kill off the Earthlings or whatever
Before the tournament starts.
Before the tournament starts.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's a weird bit of retconning that they just like, this thing that used to be totally off limits is the point
I think he
of the new movie.
does talk about that, right? He does say that it's off limits, but then there's no
repercussion.
There's no repercussion or any reason that like it's like you can't do that.
You're a
That's
bad sport.
whatever. And then it's just like
the elder
yeah,
gods.
man.
The elder gods say you can't do that, except that, you know, you just did it and nobody's doing anything to you. No, that's one of my favorite things about Mortal Kombat Annihilation is if you go back, there's a sentence you never thought you'd hear.
That's a hell of a sentence. I think you need to have a bumper sticker. It's like the Legendarium, and then it's just that quote.
First of all,
my favorite part about Mortal Kombat.
No.
Well, he said one of my favorite parts.
So it is that
several.
The entire premise of Annihilation is that whatever the Emperor's name is, I can't remember, the knockoff Kurgan.
Yeah.
He is invading anyway. Like, the Earth won the tournament and Outworld doesn't get to invade, and that was the whole point of the first movie. And you know, like, there are rules and all this stuff. And then in the second movie, it's like, we're invading anyway.
We thought we would win,
and
so now we're doing this.
There's absolutely no acknowledgement of that the first movie mattered
right
at all.
Yeah, you gotta change the rules. Man.
It was completely bizarre. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, the thing about the lack of the tournament in this new movie that bugs me the most isn't that the tournament didn't happen, but what the tournament does is it gives you a reason for all these different one-on-one matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fun. In the new movie, they find a way to do some one-on-one stuff. You know, Raiden's sending them off to do their individual battles, except that it keeps happening that somebody will finish their battle first and then go help out the other guy.
Right.
And so pretty soon, like, everybody's ganging up on each other. And I'm like, this doesn't... I don't know. That felt weird to me. Like this,
because it's literally
all about
not the way the game works. It's
Right.
literally an aspect you can't do in the
right,
game.
Exactly. So it's like, wouldn't it be fun to see what would happen if new guy Cole, I think his name was, fought Prince Goro? Like that'd be fun. And then, pretty soon it's like Cole plus his wife with an axe. And then it's I can't remember all the names. It's always 2-on-1.
You're doing great.
That's how thanks.
Well, that is an actual point I wanted to bring up about this, is to ask, can you remember the main character's name?
Cole something. Dang it.
I want to jump off of this because it is, to me, you talked about leaving out something that's vital and you leave out the tournament. And so what can the movie stand on? My question is, if you're going to add something new, we're doing it for the fans. We're doing it for the fans, this whole thing. And then you add a new character and there's like...
So for those who don't know, he is not part of the game. This
Cole character was like an MMA fighter. Yeah. And he, throughout the movie, never really wins a fight until he finally gets literal plot armor growing out of the pores of his skin. But the thing that is the weirdest to me is I'm like, okay, screenwriting 101, you need a new outsider who doesn't know anything about this world.
So you can explain it to him.
So that you can explain it to him, and that's how you do exposition. Why have it be another fighter? Why not have it be a Jesse Eisenberg from Zombieland? Somebody who's like terrified and a wussy and maybe a pacifist? Like, wouldn't that be way more interesting? Is you could give a lot more comedy fodder to it. It could be an everyman that's normal and not another badass. Like, everyone's a badass. Me, as a pacifist watching that, I'm just like, I guess they're all really good at fighting. I don't know. Like,
congratulations.
You just have to find your inner... whatever the word is that they come up with. Like,
the arcane or whatever it is.
Thank you for helping my fighter find his ability.
Yeah. Oh, that's so corny too. But it just seems so tacked on to me to be like, it's another guy who punches people in the face all the time. And I'm like, if you're going to add somebody new, like add some weird nebbish character who doesn't know what's going on.
I assume that what they're going for is a character that will be playable in the next game.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so if you do add Jesse Eisenberg, that'd be hilarious in the game, but it wouldn't make for very good gameplay. So I assume they're going for somebody who could actually work out.
That's fair.
I don't know. All right. What else is there to possibly talk about with this movie? Kyle, you look like you got something.
I got something. I want to talk about Sonya Blade for a minute.
Okay.
And
are we talking about Bridget Wilson Sonya Blade or New Age Sonya Blade?
I don't know what that means.
95.
Just the new version
Billy
of Sonya
Madison's
Blade.
girlfriend.
There you go. Okay. No,
Pete
just
Sampras's
Sonya
wife.
Blade's
There you go.
Sonya Blade's story in this movie makes no sense. Because
What?
She shows up.
Kyle, were you not paying attention during Mortal Kombat?
Come on, man.
That's the
On
thing
top
that
of
doesn't
the
make any
on top
sense.
of the things that don't make sense, my favorite part was Sonya, one, doesn't have a dragon mark tattoo thing,
Right.
birthmark, whatever. So they show up to this temple and they're like, you don't have a dragon thing. You're not a fighter. But we'll just let you stick around and do all of this with
Right.
us.
We guess
but they're
you can
so
train.
like, this is sacred and whatever, and this is a whole thing. But they're just like, well, I guess you can hang out. And just like, what?
And she has the Charlie Day wall with like, I've been following it for 25 years, the Mortal Kombat. Like, I was like, oh my God, does she actually have like yarn with like pins in it? Like,
and I feel like if you are a fan of the game at all, it's a huge disservice to Sonya's character to just like make her be like, she's just tacked on. Here you go. But it was just bizarre.
And there goes Kyle with the this is sacred lore. How dare you mess with our?
Sorry I said that earlier.
No, man. I haven't played Mortal Kombat since I was probably 14.
Yeah, I know. Same.
But like, just looking at it, why either she gets to the temple and they kick her out and then have her have some other interesting thing, but she literally just like sits at the table and has dinner with them, sits over there on the steps and watches them fight each other, sits over, like...
You didn't see that there was a +1 marker next to each one of the dragon tattoo things?
I must have missed that.
I gave her my extra life.
Yeah, there you go.
No, there was a moment where the little sand pit that they train in before the tournament, they're all going in there and somebody stops Sonya and says, this is for... contestants only, right? You are not so it's not like she wasn't allowed in the temple, but definitely there was a demarcation. You are not allowed in here. This is for the fighters, whatever.
This is for the men.
And then exactly the people who look good in a tank top in a different way.
That's right.
But then they forget. They literally forget about that, and she's just down in the pit fighting with them 5 minutes later.
Right. It's like that guy who told her no, like went on break.
Exactly.
Like, dude, hurry. Get in here.
I think that sequence actually had one of my most frustrating moments in the whole show too, because they built up this character. And again, this is one of those, can you tell me who this character is? This winged angel that the bad guy loves. And and he sends her off to fight. And they do this great camera sequence where she's flying around, she's panning around. We're like, okay, crap, what's happening? What's going on? We're about to get hit. And then she dives in and can opener guy, Kung Lao, chucks his hat into the sand, jumps and like just runs her through, like
surfs her into a circular saw.
The entire fight sequence.
It's called the Legolas.
Okay, sorry, go on. Ryan.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. There were a couple scenes earlier on where we're introduced to this character and she's supposed to have some sort of weight and everything, and then we get to the point where she starts to fight. She's supposed to be part of the fight, and they just throw it away immediately.
Well, because
the setup was longer than the payoff, and that doesn't work in a lot of things that you want to enjoy.
This is what I'm talking about, where they did that strictly so that someone could say flawless victory.
Yeah.
That is the entire purpose of that sequence, is so that somebody can say flawless victory. And he does his little, like, he does the hat, like that's a move from the video game. He traces the edge of the hat.
Where was the toasty guy? Like, as long as we're doing homages to everything from the game, like, why didn't we get somebody burn up and one of the game designers pop their head in and go, toasty? Because fan service, like, when do you stop with fan service? You've got to have it all in there, right?
Or nothing.
Or nothing at all.
Yeah. So it was very much like, what are some other horrible fan service moments that we can remember? R2-D2 and C-3PO showing up in, was it Rogue One?
Yeah.
Where they pop in for 30 seconds and have a line, and so that everybody can go, I know those guys. And
I mean, that's totally...
You're done.
Well, you know what? And this isn't a fan service thing, but I was thinking about it a lot with Mortal Kombat, and in particular, people online that were complaining about the folklore and all this, and like, they changed stuff and all these ideas. I kept thinking about, it's not a video game movie, but the original Masters of the Universe movie with Dolph Lundgren.
Okay. You think about that often, I'm sure.
You would be surprised. But the thing that I thought about with that is that, like, watching the movie of that, it's so weird because they changed so many things. Like, they brought in new characters. The characters that are there that were from the cartoon and the toy line are super weird looking, and like nothing seems the same. And they built like a whole new mythology around it. And then, like, maybe about 3 years ago, I was watching that Netflix series, the Toys That Made Us, and it does the background of all these different ones. There's one on He-Man. And it's like the main guy's like, man, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We were like, I don't know. He's like Conan, but there's also like lasers and spaceships and stuff. And we just kind of were like making toys, and then it took off. And so I'm like, it's the same thing where like they made this ridiculous, stupid thing that got crazy popular, and so they had to retrofit in like the tournaments. They're from another world. They're like from another dimension. That's it. That's the ticket.
Yeah.
And then some of
That's
them
why
are
he can shoot the
humans,
thing out of his hand.
right? And
Yeah.
so they're just like making up everything as they go. So what it's hinging upon is because it was literally like some people that were like, yeah, we'll have a yellow guy in there and he'll be, he'll have like a whip thing, and then we'll have another blue guy and he can freeze stuff. And it's like they didn't have any.
Don't even bother changing the costumes on the model. Just recolor them and
it's like, isn't that the most like pity, like just like here you go fan service thing? Is that they're like, now if you look at him close up, like the one guy's mask is like it's like a some kind of a shield, and then the other guy's is like weird and it's leather, so they're not the same at all. And you're like, it's called video game sprites. They were exactly the same.
And then we'll make the green guy and call him Reptile.
Yeah, and he'll be even. And in this one, he's gonna look like a Spider-Man villain. Like it's like so stupid.
Okay, so here's a question for you guys. After having watched this movie, I suspect I know Ryan's answer already, but the whole purpose of a movie like this, besides hopefully at least breaking even for the studio, hopefully Warner Brothers makes its money back, etc. But they want to move product. That's a video game movie is about moving product. How likely are you to get back into the Mortal Kombat franchise now that the film franchise has been revived? I will take that as a 0 out of 100.
I mean, I have downloaded the old techno song
Yeah.
and re-listened to that several times as I've driven, which is really the best thing about the 1995 movie.
Yeah.
That's really the flagship merchandise right there. And I will say that the new techno song is pretty sweet as well.
It's not bad.
It's not as good as the old one. It's not going to live forever like the old one, but it's not bad.
I've had it happen sometimes where I'll watch a movie, I'll get through the first few minutes of a movie, and then maybe like I'm 2 minutes into it and I shift in my seat and accidentally turn off the TV, and then I gotta get back into, okay, you go into the thing, and you're so fresh into the movie that the streaming service hasn't even registered that you're watching it, so it plays it from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
This happens every once in a while. And most of the time, I'm like, all right, I got to skip past the credit sequence to get to where I was, 2 minutes in. It's happened to me with 95 Mortal Kombat yesterday. And I went back into it, and, it starts up again, Mortal Kombat. I'm like, nah, I'm sitting through this again. That was awesome.
Got it, man. They knew what they were doing. I guess, back to your question, I'm in my mid 40s now, and I'm like, I'm married. I don't sit around and hang out with my stupid friends all day, every day. And I can't even really sit cross-legged on the floor anymore like I could when I was a kid. And like, I think that to me, Mortal Kombat is sitting cross-legged on the floor with your buddy sitting next to you. Whoever wins gets to punch the other person in the shoulder and make homophobic jokes at one another. Like, that is the crux of Mortal Kombat in and of itself. So like, I'm not that target audience at all anymore. That would be my comment.
So you're no longer the target audience for Mortal Kombat even as a film franchise, probably. What video game movie do you want to see happen now? And Kyle, don't say Warcraft. That happened and it was terrible. So
it did happen and it was terrible. And I was actually going to call that out as your fan service question.
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole like opening sequence. Well, the whole opening sequence with the human side where they like jump from one place to the next place and he's riding that griffin everywhere. Pure fan service for like 15 minutes. And it just makes everybody go like, what the hell is going on? So
okay,
it won't be Warcraft.
What video game movie do you want to see made?
I would like, and Craig is going to be mad, I would like to see StarCraft lore on screen.
Why would I be mad?
Let me put it this way. I don't want to see the existing storylines of StarCraft retold on screen.
Right.
You can use some of those characters, but I want that world on screen again. Generally speaking, I think StarCraft is better suited to the game world where you can play the different subsections of the story, but Blizzard has a gold mine on their hand there if they can execute that story, that world well on screen.
Yeah, I could see that. So kind of like a Star Wars expanded universe situation where it's like, all right, can we stop following Luke Skywalker and just have a cool story in the Star Wars universe?
No, he's going to show up a little bit later.
In StarCraft?
Yes.
Okay. All right. But you know what I mean?
Who's going to save the Marines from the Hydralisks? A green lightsaber coming down the trench.
Oh.
Jim Raynor, come on, man.
So, okay,
Gotta
all right.
back
No,
there.
StarCraft is a good
He'll
choice.
just turn and say, "What's your name, sir?" Jim Skywalker.
Yeah.
Jim Skywalker.
So,
Steve Skywalker.
no, I think StarCraft is a respectable choice. I hope they don't do it like just because the track record of video game movies is now so thoroughly entrenched in horror.
Yeah.
Just it's these films. This is the film version of terrorism. Anytime you make a video game movie,
There are a
so
handful of
bad.
good ones. I disagree. I think there are maybe not movies, but there are a handful of good video game
Oh,
franchises.
lordy, let's hear a couple.
Witcher.
You know, that was the one I
Okay,
thought
all right,
about.
all
That
right.
was the one I thought about that had cropped up since we last did our show.
That's a good point. I
Yeah.
actually hadn't thought about that. In fact, you know what's weird is that one was so good that I don't even think of it as a video game movie,
But it totally is.
but it is.
Or
So-
series, I guess.
Well, yeah, but it's just a long movie.
Others you could take along those lines. I think if you did them in a similar vein, I know Craig and I have both really enjoyed the Horizon Zero Dawn series.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You could do a really good piece out of that one. I think that's got a lot of potential
That
there.
one actually, you could probably film that as is, like just straight through the story as is. Hire the same actress, whatever. Like you could. That one would translate, I think, very well to the screen. I was going to say The Last of Us. Have you guys played that one?
That one is being.
Is that being developed?
That one is being
That'd be
developed.
That would make sense.
Gross.
I'm not
Like,
not
I'm totally
pleasant.
into it, but I'm like, yeah, that would make your skin crawl for sure.
Yeah.
But I like that. I and I mentioned this last time, and I think it's just because I like the game so much. I would love just like a full-blown reboot of Silent Hill and start with Silent Hill The Room, which I believe is Silent Hill 4, and just have like somebody like a Gore Verbinski do it, where it's just like it's got like a lot of style to it, and they actually use the storyline and don't try to build some brand new storyline that has all these silly twists and turns in it,
Gore Verbinski, did Gore Verbinski do the first Pirates movie?
Yes.
Okay, that's where.
And he also did The Ring, the American remake of The Ring.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is like that kind of just like really stylized look to it. Like I would love to see something like that. Cause like that's the thing with Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil movies. I don't know if I mentioned this in the last one, time that we talked about this, but like the Resident Evil, the style of those actual games, like the first couple of them, it's really cool because even though you're like the cop and you got your gun, you're in like a haunted house and it's all very old and Victorian. And Paul W.S. Anderson just took it and was like, oh, there's also cyborgs and we're in this underground city that's all futuristic and everything's stainless steel. And I was like, does he think this is scary? Because there's nothing about this that's even a little bit scary. It's just corny.
It's that the way you just described that reminds me so much of the tone shift between Doom, the game, and Doom, the movie.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're like, the game was like freaky. Like that's part of what made it so much fun. But like when you watch the movie, you're just like, did they play the game? Like, and how did it make them feel?
I don't. This is something I just started thinking about, so it's clearly well thought out. I don't think that first-person shooter games translate well into film.
Okay.
The more I think about it, because a lot of these ones that we're talking about, or ones that they've tried to translate, when you play them, you are already immersed in the story as the main character, as that piece, that central piece, and it doesn't translate well to shift it into a third-person narrative in a film quite the same way. I don't know how many I don't know what it would take to make that happen. There's good storylines in a lot of these games that are could easily translate, but the experience that you have with the game and the experience you would want to have with the movie, you'd want them to be similar, and they can't be similar when your perspective is that disconnected.
Because you're talking about the visual language of like suspense.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, seeing that third point of view that has a person here and then a person further down the hallway and you're like, oh, they're chasing them. But if you're that character, yeah, it's completely different experience.
Have any of you watched Hardcore Henry?
Yes.
I never got around to it, but
It's a really, really interesting premise, and there's some really fun moments in it.
For those who don't know, it's an entirely shot in first person
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
and your character is like this sort of cyborg-ish. He's like he falls out of helicopters, he gets attacked by sharks, and all of it's first person. First of all, you can only watch it in pieces. I don't know how anybody could sit through the entire thing all at once because it makes you sick. Like it's so kinetic and it never stops, you know. But yeah, it's not indicative for an actual storyline because you can't associate any emotion with a character whose face you can't see. You can't build empathy.
There's nothing there. I just finished like a week ago playing a game called Half-Life Alyx. It's a VR game. If you're familiar with the Half-Life series a little bit, that's another series that I think has potential that could translate into some fun films. I could never replicate the experience of playing that game in any other medium than the VR medium. It was genuinely one of the most terrifying things I've ever played. Multiple times freaking out. But the story was so good that I would love to see it translate into a film piece, but it's not going to because there's no way to give the experience of going down into an underground subway, seeing a silhouetted body hanging down the hallway, knowing I have to go up and take the flashlight off that corpse while there are zombie creatures around me.
Right.
I can't translate that the same way in film as what I'm having to feel knowing that I've got to go down that hallway.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so I don't know. Video game movies. I've got nothing else.
I think 3 come to mind for me that we haven't mentioned yet, which would be the Diablo franchise. I think would be fantastic.
That'd be cool lore-wise, for sure.
Yeah, lore-wise. And I think The Witcher has proven out that you could do something like that. I would want it to be done along those lines. I think Halo is one that I would really still like to see. I was pretty bummed that whole Steven Spielberg produced series that was supposed to come out never really came to light, but I think that would be good. But I think it's going to suffer from what Ryan was talking about with first-person shooters, but I think you could do it. And then the last one is I want a really good Splinter Cell movie. And I know we have like spy movies all over the place, but Splinter Cell was one of my favorite.
Is that the Tom Clancy thing?
Tom Clancy Splinter Cell.
I loved that game.
And I think a good old-fashioned spy movie would be really cool.
Right on.
Well, the Splinter Cell thing, I'll just say this. Like, one of my favorite things about the game experience with that is how slow everything was.
Right.
Like, you had to, you show up and you tiptoe in, you set your backpack down, then you got to open it and really quietly get out all the parts of your gun, and you're putting it together, and then you have to stop because the guy's right below the balcony.
Yeah.
And then you keep putting, and you're like, oh yeah, Michael Mann. And a Michael Mann version of that would
and
be
if you could combine, so y'all saw A Quiet Place, right? And just how intense that movie was because of just everything so quiet. Like, I feel like a Splinter Cell type of movie like that, where you're just following him, almost first person, but maybe not first person, but that intensity of like he makes a sound and basically he's screwed.
Yeah,
like, that would be really, really cool.
Well, it's procedural. It's like the first 10 minutes of The Dark Knight. Where you're just seeing him like set up his gun and then the other guy's going over to the other place and it's all procedural and you're watching it all happen. Could be really, really cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw an idea out for you guys. We've talked about a lot of like big epic things, sweeping stories and all that stuff. I'm gonna suggest that maybe the biggest missed opportunity so far of a video game movie is Monkey Island. How excellent if you could cast that well and get a good funny writer on that. Get Lord Miller to do The Secret of Monkey Island. There's your video game movie.
I like that a lot.
All I'm saying is that I'm a genius. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, lesser games have been turned into franchise-full things. Have you seen how giant Rovio is now with Angry Birds?
No.
Full-on animated series, movies, everything. What started with just a simple iPhone game, iOS game, is now a huge franchise.
Yeah, I guess it's whether or not you like those characters, right? I mean, of course, it didn't work for Sonic.
Poor Sonic.
Oh boy.
Are there any franchises that you guys are like, yeah, don't do it again or don't bother? Like, I really think they should avoid making another Super Mario Brothers movie.
Well, yeah, no, I think Nintendo has been very smart to, hold off on a lot of those.
Don't make another Legend of Zelda series.
Yeah, well, they made 6 episodes of a cartoon. It's like 30 minutes in total of Zelda cartoon. So I don't know if I even count that, but Zelda would, like, you could make a cool movie out of it, but the chances of it getting done well are so low that I think Nintendo's smart to do that with Mario and Zelda. Hold off on those. Oh shoot, what was I going to say? Kyle, it looked like you had a thought.
I was just going to say I would love somebody else to take a crack at Assassin's Creed and just forget that it's a video game and just take the lore of Assassin's Creed and make it a dope ass movie, because the way that they went about that Fassbender awfulness was
I forgot that even existed.
Yeah.
I was looking at Ryan on the camera the whole time you were talking.
Just Ryan's inner thoughts. It's me in his head usually. I'm Ryan's Jiminy Cricket.
Everyone
it's fine.
knows.
So I have a little bit. I did this to you last time. I have a little bit of a switcheroo question, which would be: is there a movie series that you can think of that would make a really good video game?
You better start us off if you've got something.
I would say the Indiana Jones series.
They've made video games.
It's called
out of
Tomb
those.
Raider.
Right, but not. But I think one where you can really lock into the actual story, the actual same kind of storylines that the movies did, where it's like, because just thinking of like Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's like he has to find the one thing and he might know where it goes, and then he goes and finds the one thing, and then he has to.
There's a Last Crusade. I played the Last Crusade video game dozens of times as a kid, and it's exactly that. It's a puzzle solver.
Oh,
You go to different rooms. You have to like find the X marks the spot, and whatever. So that one's
played it.
Yeah,
That's
that
a
one's
real
been
thing.
done.
Oh, okay.
Might be done better, as a modern video game. I don't know, but
I'm just thinking of like I've been playing the video game Stranded Deep. I don't know if you've played that. It's sort of it's very sort of Castaway.
Okay.
You're on an airplane, it crashes, and then you go out to an island. But it's a maker game, so you have to you're getting different things together to build your own boat, and then you can sail to the next island. And it's like, but it's so detail oriented these days, where it's just like you have to go and get these really particular things. That's kind of what got me started to think about the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So a movie that could be turned into a really great video game is actually, I can't remember if we mentioned this on the first video game movies episode, but the greatest video game movie of all time is Kill Bill. And it's not a video game.
Oh, this is interesting.
So, that one could be a fantastic.
Elaborate.
video.
What do you think it looks like? What is it? How does it play?
Well, that's the thing is you don't have to mess with the aesthetic much because the way it's structured, the way it exists. So, obviously Tarantino chops up his timelines and stuff, but it's levels. She's going through the different levels, and she has to solve this and figure this part out, and then get to the boss character at this level.
Yeah.
And then she's done with that, and she moves on to the next one, and she's got the next set of puzzle pieces to put together to get to the next boss, and so on and so on.
Here's a thought.
Okay.
And this would be revolutionary, I think. You guys seem to play more games than I do, but I don't know if I've ever seen this before. Keep the non-linear. And so when you get to level 3, it does take place at her wedding that happened 10 years earlier. But you're playing it in order, but it's skipping your storyline around the way a Tarantino movie does.
Interesting. All right.
And you're just following her story, and it's all happening to you. And you're like, well, I have to beat this because level 4 is back in the future again, or whatever.
Well, there you go. Okay. Anybody else? Ryan, any thoughts?
I've been trying to piece together. I'm looking at thrillers and actions that would naturally translate easily into it. Things I haven't seen it yet, but I was curious about something like Tenet or Inception or something that has that thriller action edge. How well something like that would translate. I think actually Kyle threw out a really good one earlier. If you're willing to play that style game of turning A Quiet Place into a game series.
Oh yeah,
Interesting.
Game one, they're working on the second film, and it'll be interesting to see where direction they take that. because that could open up doors to something like that more so. But yeah, if you're willing to play the more of that survival style game rather than I shoot bad things as they move in front of me games.
Oh my God, you could have a little sound meter.
Yeah.
That if once it gets to a certain level,
yeah,
you're like, oh, like.
And you're dead.
It just comes out at
exactly.
Oh man, I spent a lot of time in VR, and that's the idea of playing that in VR, and all of a sudden the sound meter goes off, and you just turn around, something's coming right at you. There would be a lot of swearing.
Yeah. And a lot of broken furniture.
I did Resident Evil once in VR at my brother's house, and I was just like, and it was fascinating. It was so cool going through the old house, and then something scary happened. 15 minutes in, and I was a mess.
Well, it tells you. I had an experience just a couple weeks playing Half-Life Alyx, and I'm looking at a corpse sitting there just against the wall, and I'm just kind of taking a minute to rest because I'd just been playing the level where if you make a sound, the zombie comes after you, and you have to throw bottles and stuff like that to get him to go other places. And I'm looking at this corpse against this wall, and all of a sudden I hear my son say, "Hey, Daddy," from the direction of that corpse. I screamed, I shouted, I swore, and my son learned a bad word that day.
He's going to be explaining that to a therapist in 20 years.
Yeah, I went up and said, "Hey, Daddy, you
So there's this movie I saw. I can't remember what it's called, but let me explain it. And I think it'd be a killer video game. But so there's these two competing ninjas. One is from Japan, and the other one is from China, but also speaks Japanese. And one of them can freeze things.
They have to have different colors. They got to wear different colors.
He comes and kills this guy's family. If we could get that into a video game.
Is that all that happens? Because I'm not letting you off the hook that easy. I want you to tell me about all the other parts of this movie.
Well, as long as you don't care about anything making sense, we'll just throw out different colors, different character, whatever. Anyways.
It could be whatever you want it to be.
I did have you on the hook for just a second, though, Greg. I could see it in your eyes.
I was interested. So tell me more about these ninjas.
These ninjas.
Okay, well, really what it comes down to is for all 12 of you left listening, thank you very much for listening. This is one of those episodes where I often will say, at the end of the episode, I say, hey, visit us at patreon.com/legendarium to support the show.
This time it's please don't go to the refund page on
Patreon.
It's
do it based on good episodes. I'm kidding. Hopefully everybody had fun. This is definitely one of those ones where it was just like Ryan sent the text. I hated everything about this.
That being said,
and I just said we have to do Mortal Kombat. We just did another HBO Max movie, with the Godzilla versus Kong. Mm-hmm. But I was like, we've got to do it now because Ryan hated it so much. Yeah, when I get that strong of a visceral reaction, we have to make an episode. It's cheaper than therapy. So all this hatred, and that being said, when they do the second one, because they're going to, I'm going to watch it.
Well, you got to find out about Johnny Cage.
Yeah, you got to find out what happens.
Oh, man.
Maybe they'll make a good choice and go with Cage's daughter or something. But, yeah, no, they set everything up for the sequel in this, and I thought, you can't hit lower than this for me. Maybe that's a good place to start. I'll be able to enjoy it going forward. And maybe you do something more. But, yeah, I won't recommend this to people, but I will watch the next one.
But if there was a Snyder cut of this movie.
Only if it's in 4:3 aspect ratio.
Okay.
I've already put my cards on the table. I actually enjoyed it. Again, not because I thought it was good, but because I thought it was enjoyable for the most part. I did think, in all seriousness, outside of like post-production and coloring and stuff, and like the costumes weren't very good or interesting, but the cinematography was actually pretty darn good. It's a well-shot movie. Just the angles they got, the shots they got were creative and well done, I thought.
Yeah, there were enough moments in there that I was like, oh, wow, that was cool. Or
good vista.
I liked it. There was enough nostalgia in there. There was enough surprise in there to be enjoyable. It is not something that is well-written or even
if they don't do a sequel, and like you said, Ryan, they're going to do a sequel, almost certainly. But if they don't, I won't miss it. I won't be like, oh man, how come we never got the sequel to that movie? But when they do make it, yeah, I'm totally going to watch it and have fun with it. I don't know. Sherlock, final thoughts?
I was really surprised at how dumb the fight scenes were. Like, for it being a movie about fight scenes, like, they weren't martial arts scenes. It was lots of like punching and lunging at people, but it wasn't like, you think about like a really good kung fu movie,
right,
like that has like amazing acrobatic stuff in it. It's like, this didn't have that. It was just like, I was surprised at how like boring that was. I was like, isn't that? And like, some of these actors are not actually actors. They're like fighters. Like, that's what they do. Yeah. And they weren't it just was kind of filmed boring, and it looked really bland.
I took the opposite take on that, in the sense that I actually think that the martial arts in this film represent a more realistic martial arts than we tend to see in a lot of other films with a lot of the wiring and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's one of the three things that I think they got right. I think they did a pretty good job with representation, the martial arts, and the lore.
And I guess I wanted some Crouching Tiger stuff, man. I wanted wires, because I'm like, it's a video game.
Go watch the 95 one, and you're all set.
I know. When I saw that again, it made me so happy. So that's my final thought.
All right. Well, I frankly, I'm shocked. We made it an hour. We're like 56 minutes into this. I cannot believe that we went this long. Especially because at minute like 27, I was like, well, what else are we going to talk about? I don't know.
That's also when we veered away from Mortal Kombat and just got into video game stuff.
That's right.
Anyway, but thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this freewheeling discussion. Sherlock, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on again.
And I hope people go check out Deep Dive Film School. Search it on YouTube. Search it on Instagram. Search it on all your podcatcher
spaces and places.
So yeah. Anyway. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time.